What's up, everybody? This is Enlightened Masculinity. I'm your host, Yogi Chris, PhD, aka founder of Ninth Limb Yoga, aka Pippin Yogi. The girls love that name. Imagine, new girl, what's your Instagram? Pimpin' Yogi. As if she already doesn't have a problem that, you talk to other girls, which is so weird when you think about it. Like, you want a guy that doesn't talk to any girls. You want a guy that no girls are talking to. What does that mean? Why would no girls be talking to him? Fucking retard. Oh, but they're talking, but there's nothing going on there. Oh, so you think, let's go to the next level of, this is graduate from kindergarten to first grade. First grade, can guys and girls be friends? Just friends, where neither one of them has anything more going for the other person. Well, okay, but they don't have to act on it. Okay, so let's go to second grade then. Second grade, he or she, they're not going to act on it. What's that going to do to their behavior when, like, you want to do something, but you keep denying yourself. You don't allow yourself out of some. Why? Why wouldn't you? Don't you see that just represses it? It's going to come out in some weird, dark way. Well, it doesn't have to. Okay. Fourth grade. Who do you know that exemplifies this ideal of what you think a man and woman should be like in general? Anybody? Church pastor? Nah, probably not. Let's not examine all of the idols of your life, because you'll see it'll just crumble your reality. You'll cry. You'll be in denial. You'll get angry. You'll go through all of those. You'll grieve. All the people that you look up to. Oh, man, the dark wickedness they harbor and probably have even done. That's not even the subject of this. The subject of this episode, this red pill episode about masculinity, is destimulating your mind. And it doesn't necessarily mean that I'm good at it. It just means that here I have something to talk about. I think you might like it. Even being able to identify, what does re-stimulating the mind mean? What does it mean? What is it? Re-stimulate, to stimulate the mind. People use words like trigger. I get triggered, or, something popped off in my mind, or, I couldn't let go of an emotion. Can't let go. Attached. People use small words for, like, attachment for small things. Like, I'm attached to strawberry bubblegum instead of blueberry bubblegum. But what about other attachments? Like, I always used to wear turtlenecks, or my beard. I had a beard. It's difficult to cut that. Or guitar playing, or weed, or whatever, attachments. Or treat me this way or that way. And so, getting back to, there's some attachments that when we don't get our way, we go, almost like a different personality or different mood. A mood comes over us. Sometimes this mood, it's like 3 days and then it's over. And we see it happen to us in a cycle where it's like, this just keeps happening. Or it happens every once in a while. Or it happens this joint hasn't gone out. That means I'm supposed to smoke it one more time. There, I totally killed it there. No half-assing it there. I put that joint out. And this idea of re-stimulation is not something I was aware of when I was in my teens, 20s, and now at 35. It's a word that's thrown around, and probably around 31, 32, 33 is like I started using it as a word. So it's like 2 to 4 years ago. And then in the last 2 years, it became apparent, like this thing. I sought help for it. I had identified it. It was this thing that's like, man, sometimes I'm just going good and things are going and I'm on plan. And then this mood, why? It's a consciousness level. At 33, I start to notice that there's a mood that overtakes this body. What the fuck? And it's on a cycle. Has that been happening? I've just been not paying attention, man. It's like, it's so many examples. Demigod's about to be home. It's like I learned how to brush my teeth with my opposite hand. Or just sometimes you'll catch yourself doing something habitually, like, what's a good example? Just the way that you dry yourself with the towel or something. The way that you tie your shoelaces, you always put the right string over first, or the left string over first. It's a habit. You do it the same on the left and right, even though you don't reverse it on the left and right, like use your left hand dominant, your right hand dominant, and switch sides. There's like a habit that you have that you're not conscious of until you try to change it. You may never try to change it. And, you know, some of these, where do these habits come from? And a lot of habits are not so practical like that. That's a practical habit, how you tie your shoes. Other habits like, maybe, what is a good example? I could say like what scents you use, like perfume, cologne. What habits, your language, how you use your language. You know, if you've ever noticed your language changes, like maybe when you get real angry, you turn real thug or real hood. But when you're happy, you talk all like proper white or something, whatever that is. I know I change. There's a different, I catch that at certain like anger levels, if anger was, if there was the scale, let's just say, suppose there's a scale from 0 to 4. 0 to 4 is your emotions. At 4, you're beaming. You're fucking a clear vessel for the soul inside. Just you're okay with everything that happens, but not because you're all blissed out. You're actually very aware. You're like present, the best you've probably ever felt, but also aware. And then at 0, you're dead. You feel so bad you die. That's the worst you could feel. Let's just assume, suppose. And then from light, from feeling immortal to being dead, like in this spectrum, anger is somewhere in there. Getting angry. It's pretty low, but it's not that low actually. Anger still has a lot of energy behind it to protect oneself, to push back, to whatever. There's paralysis like a possum that's even lower. Possums are depressed. I just realized. So anger, I've noticed that it is bandwidth. What's a bandwidth? Like it's, you know, a segment of this color, this from 0 to 4 color spectrum, like a rainbow from 0 to 4, somewhere in there is anger, red or whatever, orange. And I noticed that I say similar things at that level. When I'm in that level, I have a certain speech patterns that come out, and I hear my dad a lot in that too. Like I'll hear the voice of my dad through me. Like as I'm talking, I'm like, as I say it, I almost hear his voice at the same time. And I'm like, oh shit. And I've caught it repeatedly at that. And so every bandwidth kind of has something like that. A recent realization is that, you know, I haven't even really gotten into defining like restimulation, but like the mistake that I was making for a long time is that I'm either restimulated or not. It's like I'm either I am or I'm not. There's a degree of restimulation, and there's many things that could be restimulating at the same time, simultaneously, overlapping, layered. How they play together, I mean, you could call that like psychology, like the study of that, but that's, you know, very loosely necessary for this. Not psychology, proper psychology, but like, I would really just go on Scientology. Scientology is what's so appealing as a philosophy to look at, as just an understanding of the mind, because obviously I study and practice so much else. What's so fascinating about it is that it seems, as much as I read, consistent. We would call it in academia. When I was getting my PhD, we call it academia, where you're like, you're in the academic sphere of the economy of like, you know, the people that work in research and science and teaching and whatever, get a certain funding, like, and that's like its own economy, how that's distributed or whatever, academia. So in academia, we'd have this term called it's consistent. It's consistent. We would describe something like it's consistent throughout. And that means like, as you read more into it, it doesn't contradict itself. It doesn't invalidate itself. It doesn't, you know, and that's more difficult to do the bigger of a thesis you create, because it has to be consistent throughout. And so like, if you create a whole discipline, a whole subject, like I invent a style of dance or something, or that's not really, I mean, that is kind of, but let's say teleportation or something. I create like a teleport. It's a whole new technology of something. And then for it to actually work, it would need to be, it would need to make sense. Physics makes sense. It's consistent throughout. The split happens at the quantum level. There's something that happens in there, and it makes sense why it would. But scale matters in this universe. It doesn't have to be the same principles or the same laws at that. Our primitive understanding, it's probably the same law. It just changes as you zoom in on it. I don't know that much about string theory or whatever, but the quantum level is still happening at the gross physical level. Like when I see a bridge or a building, there's still all that quantumness in it. I'm looking at the wall is looking at me. I'm influenced by the wall looking at me or the TV. What I put my consciousness on influences me. That means I'm influencing it. It's a quantum thing. Electrons or whatever, orientations of the atoms by my attention. But what is that physical influence compared to the influence of gravity? It's giving it so much mass. Or if wind came in here and blew it, like that has much more physical influence than just me looking at it. But wind blowing is never going to put that TV together. It was me looking at it that I assembled a TV. Like I can do that with my consciousness by observing. Wind is just chaos. It's gross physical force. Why I'm saying that is where there's inconsistency, there's probably falseness. There's misunderstanding. It doesn't make sense. Look at your life as it needs to be consistent throughout. And one of the ways to notice where it's not being consistent throughout is moods that come over you. Because listen to the philosophy of it, the sentence of it. It's difficult to apply in my experience, but listen to this. Why would I ever be feeling, I mean, it's not like a quote, so I'm just going to kind of describe it. Why would I ever be feeling in a way that I don't want to feel that way? If I didn't want to feel that way, why am I feeling that way? Because of something outside of my control. I'd probably name because of her or him or this or that. If I was really aware, I might say something because I believe this or because I need that. So at least I'm like putting it on like myself. And then, or when, and actually, as you explained it, if somebody had you explain it and you had to make sense out of it, you would gradually come out of that emotion. Because the emotion, the mood, that let's just take the one that you're not liking, a mood that or an emotion you don't like, is not by your choosing. That's so interesting to me. What the fuck? If I get into a mood or a reaction about something, let it go. Yeah, but like, don't we get curious about why did that happen? So that's something unconscious that I reacted to the situation. Now, there's a lot more in the unconscious ocean than just that one reaction that we have to, such and such. Somebody tells us something we don't like, or, we see a car that reminds us of something, or we hear a song that reminds us of something, and I didn't choose the reaction. Now, sometimes, so that points to a deeper ocean of unconsciousness. How much is in there? Everything you're not thinking about, plus a whole lot more. All these associations of things that you see a certain kind of tree, the smell, the taste, someone looks like somebody else. Jesus. How much? That's why going into nature away from everybody destimulates you, because you're not going to see anything that's stimulating, that's re-stimulating. It's not going to re-stimulate these unconscious patterns, because unless you had some trauma out in the woods, then you don't want to go to the woods. Because what is that? That's the trauma. So that's the doorway. That's the doorway into your nervous system. Maybe you don't like, maybe I don't even like the word. Let's call it intense experience. The intense experience kind of almost burned into the, thank you, burned into the nervous system, and it's in that analogy. That's not even good language for it either. Let's call it like, left impressions. It impressed on the nervous system. I like how I'm changing the language here. See, I'm getting more sane about it. So the intensity of experience left impressions in the nervous system. And so much, what happened is actually when I'm talking about the unconscious, because impressions are actually made by resisting what's happening. By resisting what's happening, a pattern of resistance to what's happening is inlaid. Now, what I'm talking about with restimulation is when the intensity is so much so that our conscious awareness as a coping strategy, so you can even train this thing. If you're like a Navy SEAL or an Army Ranger or something, you could push the horizon or whatever. You don't have to be those to push it. You could push how much can you stay aware of what you're doing. And what I mean is at a certain intensity of experience, your conscious mind shuts off as a protective mechanism. But your mind is still going, your body is still going. You may be clunked across the head. You may be going through some real intense trauma of some sort, or I don't like that word, just some real intense experience of some sort. And we might use the language like I blacked out, or I wasn't with it, or I was not aware. I went blind. I went anger blind, snow blind, blind. My hearing, I stopped hearing, blah, blah, blah. But there's recording that's happening. It's on the other side of our awareness. And it's just retarded. It's not recording in the sense of like you're understanding what I'm saying right now. Someone's listening to this recording and they're understanding. It's not that kind. It's just a inlay of sensory experience. Were there rocks? Were there trees? Were there sounds? Were there people? There was talking, and language is this interesting code, let's call it an access. What I like so much about the idea of neurolinguistics, NLP, is not even NLP itself, like the subject of it, just the name, neurolinguistics. Linguistics are inlaid in your nervous system. To understand the idea of your body feels hot, or your body feels warm, your whole body feels that. To even translate the experience of my right leg is itching means that you got to feel itching right leg, and then that's translated through this language machine. If you don't have good language, you wouldn't even know how to say that. But all your experience could be translated through language. And that's what it kind of does, is transmits our experience. Man, so fascinating. So fascinating. So in moments of unconsciousness or other, maybe even less intense things, like just repeated patterned movement, like being around the same kind of speech, or and having that association, maybe mom sounded like this or that, dad sounded like this or that. And it came with a chronic experience, meaning like over and over and over experience of like they were upset, or they were fucking dissatisfied, or, tired, or on drugs, or whatever the fuck experience was. Maybe they were always generous, always loving, always warm. Maybe, but was there worry about that? So when you start hearing, you don't even know, you hear the same word combination as what mom said or dad said, and all of a sudden there's a slight restimulation. And you feel it in different places in your body, but I'm getting better and better. Like I feel so young in my experience of my body because I feel so new at it. I'm noticing I'm 35, I'm not active in the way that I was, but I feel so like I'm still writing the user's manual for this. I'm like, what the fuck did I know back then when I was so body aware and this and that? I was body trained. I was body tamed, not necessarily body aware. It's like almost the difference between having like a horse in the stable and a horse that just stays. Like awareness. What does it take to do? Or the horse that just will come back at night or whatever. Even more than that. It's like, example. So destimulation or restimulation, you feel you need awareness of your kind of baseline of how you are. And you'll measure that and that'll change. But what needs to happen is it needs to drop. We got to push it lower in calmness. Got to de-excite, de-stimulate, relax the body, relax the breathing, relax the seeing, relax the hearing, relax everything while you stay alert. And there's practices for this. That's like what Shavasana is the last pose in yoga. Or just sitting, you can sit and do this in nature. It's great. Or anywhere. Nature's great because it destimulates us. There's so many layers of re-stimulations happening, and it may get carried away. We're acting out a robot life. We're a biological robot acting out patterns. So much of what we do, we're unconscious of. We just exert will a few times a day to make a decision. Most of it isn't that big a deal. We make a lot of little decisions that are basically robotic, calculated. We're within the confines of our language, of what we're allowed to experience, what we're allowed to say, what we're allowed to talk about. Words carry experiences. If you can't say some things, that's a confinement of your mind. Four-walled living isn't just on the outside. So this is AZD process translated with some Scientology, L. Ron Hubbard, just reading just a little bit. And it seems consistent throughout the L. Ron Hubbard writing. It's got a language to describe things that it's deep. I told AZD once, I was like, if you weren't around or something, like whatever happened, that's when I would study L. Ron Hubbard, but I'm more focused on this. But now I'm realizing as I've come closer and closer, it's just the necessity of it for myself to understand. And yeah, hopefully through streaming and talking about the ideas, you guys get it. Maybe you'd have to read it, maybe not. I think the idea of, what is this? 12 people showing up here, whoever's on the social medias, 12 people coming here, it's like a condensing of attention. Everybody's attention is now condensed on what I'm saying. And what I'm saying is improving you. You like it. It feels, it's uptoning you. And it should. I mean, you would leave if it doesn't. The people that leave, it doesn't, And so collecting the attention on what I'm saying, and I'm just speaking sense, describing something, should be overall like a net positive. Like, let's think of it as like it's draining for me because I don't get to do something else, takes energy, I pay money, whatever. But it's a net positive for everybody else. But it's also a net negative for everybody because they have time, time is money, they're sitting there and doing that. So there's some exchange. And if it benefits 12 or 11 other people in their evolution of this understanding, if it accelerates you, if it jumps you forward in time for your own life, because you can live, like I was saying to somebody, you could spend 10 years playing video games and then spend 10 years working on your business, or you could spend 10 years as a cog in a machine, have a job, or you could spend 10 years living in the wilderness, I don't know, and be 35 like I am, and you'd have a different wisdom. 35 is not 35 is not 35 is not 35. It's not all made the same. In fact, none of it's made the same. It's all made different. So we all have this different wisdom of what we've practiced, what we've repeated. And you're going to get to some of the laws of nature and the truths of reality in your own time, on your own. Now you study so that it leaps you forward, so you can get to someone else's conclusions that they probably got from somebody else's conclusions. They've studied in a lineage. And so you can leap forward, but then are you just going to be a composite of a bunch of different people's conclusions? How consistent is all of their conclusions with each other, let alone with themselves? Like, how consistent of a person in philosophy were they, let alone with 3 or 4 or 5 different philosophers, how consistent throughout within them across philosophies, Ayn Rand versus Epictetus versus whoever you're following, whatever rapper, that's a philosophy. You're following that. Whatever politician, that's a philosophy, political philosophy, whatever values they proclaim. If you listen, what magic book are you reading that, is the author alive or not? Do you watch the videos? Like you're composite of a bunch of different philosophies, and you're somewhere on the scale, on this bell curve or whatever distribution of human philosophy, because not all philosophy is made the same. It's all contextual. The philosophy of how to thrive, survive, and survive, adapt, and thrive in one location might be different than another, and it would be. But you're looking to improve conditions, and at the top, it all comes together. Maybe there's some other peaks along the way that kind of go off in different dimensions. Like you could be the best at something in the world, top, most known person on that thing. And then in another group of people, they don't even know you. But at the top of the top, let's say the power of political or whatever, Donald Trump or Putin or whatever, almost everybody knows him, but I'll bet you'd find monks. I'll bet you'd find tribesmen. I'll bet you'd find people that just are ignorant. Or people, it might even be ignorant by choice. They choose to not be involved at all to that degree. Not everybody will know you. But what is, in fact, your structure? What is your influence? Are you an opinion leader? Are you going to move people with your words and your decisions? People move material. People move material. If you move people, you're moving material and energy. It takes material and energy to move material and energy across this planet. It's limited in the sense that it's not infinite. Fast forward in time, it's a very large number, its ability to recreate. But, if you burn all the grass on a landscape, it doesn't just all grow back right away. It has to grow in from the edges. You burned all the seeds. So it'll take a long time for the center to regrow unless you spread seed. But in nature, it would be a little bit birds with shit and it'd be kind of scattered, but it'd be so patchy until it grows back. So there's a limit you could harvest the grass. Let's say it's hay or whatever. Grass is not a great example, but like trees or something. Trees need shade. So if you harvest all the trees on a landscape, the new trees are hard to grow because they're all in direct sunlight. New trees grow under trees. So you got to cut them at a certain thinness. These are like little things. It would just be in every subject of natural resource consumption. And it doesn't matter. That's not the point of this. But the point of this is that there is an energy basis. There's an energy support. How much energy it takes to be a human. You live in a building that's air conditioned, that was built by natural resources, that it took natural resources to put it together. A lot of human labor too. Transported it to you, built it. You're in it every day. You use all these different things that have all supply chains or whatever back through time that take energy. You depend on that for your influence. Without your cell phone, without your car, without your, internet, you depend on an infrastructure and all this stuff. It takes energy to build that, energy material, concentrated material. Nature had to concentrate aluminum and iron and things for us to be able to mine it. We don't just go to the soil and filter out iron. Iron comes in deposits. It's concentrated. So we need nature to do that for us because we can't do it. So we needed those things. And then as people, we use those things. We use those concentrations up and throw them away. And how much you use, if it's sustainable, that's kind of where you're at in society. Are you pushing 200K a year? What are you buying with that 200K a year? You're moving a lot of people and resource. Now, do you own a business and there's people under you? You're employing them. People come to you. You're moving. You have influence. If you move up the economic ladder more and more and more, maybe you move into politics or you're a sports team like coach or some kind of big organization that you have big influence, a church of 40,000 people, and you decide Toyota's bad and Honda's good or something. Like you created influence on the consumption on the planet. Movie star endorsement or something, on up all the way to like Trump or Putin. There's a influence over the energy patterns and cycles of the planet. That's like a measure, even though you would never measure it. And I barely even scratched the surface of it, right? A dissertation on it. But, why I say all this in reference to restimulation, destimulation is, humans have been swept up in the machine of the human culture. And freedom is outside of your comfort. It's outside of your experience. It might be inside of your experience, but it's not bound by your experience. Freedom is a non-resistance. It's an enjoyment. It's an appreciation. So destimulating the mind, when you catch that you are stimulated because you're not appreciating, you're complaining, you're feeling a negativity, you got to get familiar with being calm so that you can get familiar with being agitated. What is that? Or being disturbed, being off. And you keep pushing your reference of calm. Reference of calm, what does that mean? It means you practice getting calm daily. How do you do that? Sit down, close your eyes, turn off everything for some time. Whether inside, outside, like practice being calm, yoga, lay down, just lay down. You might fall asleep. Like put your attention on being calm. Just stand there. In the mornings, I just stand there outside. And I don't want to be slow. I don't want to be passive or non-responsive. It's a calmness. And I may not be at the peak of my business day while I'm practicing calmness. It's going to be a different vibe, but I definitely want to practice calming every day. And so I can start to notice more, because when I'm calm, I hear more, I see more, I'm more aware, I'm less crowded inside. So I just notice more, because you're going to need to come to a place in your evolution. You got to keep this podcast, Jesus Christ, is not the attainment of what I'm talking about. It's just describing it. The evolution to get to where you notice when you're off. Notice when you're not in control of your movement. You're not in control of what you're saying as much as you want to admit you refuse to be wrong. It's attachment. And along with that attachment is some other characters in your head, other people. But that's a subject for another time, we could keep going. I was even telling my apprentices, I was like, I'm going to do book reviews for this podcast. And I forgot about that before I did this episode. It would have been a lot easier. I could talk about L. Ron Hubbard as an author. That's kind of what I leaned on. I've only read a couple of things. Seems very good. There's Dianetics and Ethics. And Ethics, I'm not through yet, but I'm going to make it very far through this time, I can tell. It's like the fourth time I'm trying to read it. And I see that if I just pushed a little bit further, I don't know. I needed to start it over 4 times, because I was getting lost in the text. And so I started it over and read, and it made more sense. Started it over, made more sense. And now I'm getting it to the point where it's like, wow, all these conditions of existence, as he calls it, and formulas of existence are making sense. I see the ladder here. It's a ladder to pick yourself up. And ethics is not Dianetics and Ethics. Dianetics would explain these impressions, these unconscious impressions and behavior patterns and things that get restimulated. That's going to be a Dianetics. Ethics is going to be the scale, let's call it the scale of your mood and how to pick yourself up, how to overcome, because what happens when a mood comes over you, a mood swings over you, is it affects your production, it affects your relationship, it affects money, essentially, it affects your spending, it affects your life. The mood affects your life. And so that means it affects your survival. How well are you going to survive? How good are your decisions when you're in that mood compared to when you're not? Are you making big decisions, lifestyle decisions that will last for some time? So it has survival implications. If you want to ascend to the higher echelons of life, your decisions carry more weight because you're in command of more resource, of more people, of more energy. Wrong decision. So it takes ethics to move up. Is what I'm understanding, but I'll give you more as I read more. So, I recommend that. I'm also reading 88008. That's real spaced out, man. I don't even feel human when I read that. I don't even know what I'm reading. So it makes sense. It's just like, I don't know that I can repeat any of it to you right now at all. I'm just going to keep going with it. It's fun. It's almost like science fiction, but I'm told, and I'm getting to this point. I'm getting really, I'm anticipating, and I'm getting really curious, and there's a word I'm looking for. It's not suspicious, but I'm getting really, it's really suspenseful almost. This thing called, man, now I forgot it. There's these two kind of processing. It was like imagination processing. It's not this. It's like imagination processing and like visual processing or something. It's something that you do, like you go through these steps with your mind. I think that's what it's going to be by the end of the book. So I'll get to it real good. So, may have a guest on Sunday, the next episode. I think TK posted the link. Leave a review for the show. If you're a guy, join the Enlightened Masculinity Telegram. Send me a message to join that. We have the Beast Gathering coming up, which is no longer, I don't even know what it's called, but it's called Keepers of the Tech. So it's like a special event, and it feels special. It feels like before I came around, I got my position at the first Tabiat event. The first Tabiat event was a 25K event. 5 guys attended. It was in April of 2019. And after that event, AZD asked me, like, will you just get guys for the next Tabiat event and you take 10%? I was like, okay. And then Fernando was the first guy I got. And then on and on. We did like 8 or 9 of those events. And then it changed to the Love Spell Boot Camp, where the price dropped to like $1,500 or something to come in person. Whoa, from 25K. So now like 14 guys showed up, or 13 guys. A bunch of guys showed up online. It was then right after that COVID hit. And so we did that was in like February of 2020. So then March 2020, we did another camp. A little bit less people. April 2020, we did another camp. About the same amount of people, because COVID started climbing from there. By like July 2020, it was like, hey, this is a dope group. This is the first time that Troy Rhino came around. And I think Oracle Power, but he wasn't Oracle yet. He was just still Raul Cervantes. I think he came around in July, actually, July 2020. By this point, it became called the Beast Camp. Now it's established. We did every month, or practically every month, camps. We did Tabiat, which sometimes there wasn't somebody doing it in person. So we had a few people do it online and made it worth it. Online was $5,000. That's how powerful the information was. He hasn't taught that same stuff again. Some of it has been infused. All I have is a reference, and I have the recordings, and I should go back. I was just thinking about it earlier today. But then it became a bigger group event where like 7 to 14 people were showing up. Now we get 20 people, 25 people will be here at this camp. And, it's been every month for like 20 or 30 months. And it's changed. It changed from, the boot camp to the Beast Camp, from the Beast Camp to the Beast Gathering, or the Gathering of the Beasts. Then it changed to the Congress. And is this still a Congress? Is this the Keepers of the Tech Congress? Maybe we could call it that. This event feels special because before all of that, before the first Tabiat event, before that, there was sporadic events. That means every so often, 3 to 6 months maybe. He was doing collaborations with Vince Kelvin. And for that, he would go and do like 2 or 3 lectures. Maybe lecture Friday night for 2 hours, maybe lecture Saturday for 2 hours, maybe lecture Sunday for 2 hours. Most guys were online, some guys were in person. And there were some exciting times during that. It was mostly VK people. VK really pulled me along. I was training with Arash. I met Arash first, actually, for a one-on-one in person. In those times, that was 6 years ago. So 2.5 years ago or 3 years ago, I, Yogi Chris, began hitting up everybody I could to come to Tabiat. Imagine your first message from me. I'm talking about that. And then it just kept expanding, and I was offering my notes and whatever, and it kept expanding. And now we're at this point that this feels like one of those special, like almost like tribal council, very similar to tribal council. But I think next month is going to be like a tribal council event. Something about the clans, rise of the clans. This month this reminds me of like Red Lotus almost. This is like the Red Lotus event. It's a tech of the imagination to create for yourself a character and a storyline that's imbued with qualities. I'm sure it's going to be guided by outcomes you want, both in character quality and physical manifestation outcomes, relationships, although that's a physical manifestation. It's going to be how to use what is uniquely yours, your stories. What are those defining events, defining accomplishments, achievements for you, through you in your language? And can you tell a story? No matter your level of achievement, supposedly achievement, can you weave it in a way? Man, that's just like poetry. It's a rhapsody. You know, that's a play that plays out in a person's mind. Like so how to identify these things. I mean, this is from the preliminary lectures. This is what I noticed about this camp. And that's also for the sponsors level. So the sponsors level is 2K. Now, if you come to the camp by itself, I think you're still going to be demonstrated, because I believe it will be up until those exclusive lectures. It's just going to keep, it's going to be a tease up until, and it feels like a tease because I know that there's a culmination that's coming. Of course, there's a main event. Of course, there's reserved information, but of course it's being dripped out also, so that you get a feeling of it. I'm getting a feeling for what's coming. This 2K sponsorship event. It's going to be special. And then Rise of the Clans will be some of those guys that return for in person or do whatever level event, will be established within IMC Nation, like something. They have a character, they have guidance, and then they're in. And I believe it will be similar to a tribal council, but it's not the same. Like, it's not like he repeats events. It's more like he spirals back around to that similar frequency and tells the story in a new way through all this new evolution that's happened over 12 months of teaching and pushing and relationships and growth and release, letting go, and new perspectives and continued study every day and practice and honing and new experiences with new collaborations and all sorts of things. And so the growth and the wisdom at the level of, what is wisdom in what? This is a lifestyle wisdom. This is a relationships and communication and mindset wisdom. This is integrating Scientology, but not the Church of Scientology, just the writings of L. Ron Hubbard, because the church is compromised. So the practitioners of it, it's compromised. But the philosophy, just like Stoicism, where's a good Stoic that you want to learn from? Where's a good meditator that's all, player with women and masculine and whatever, knows how to be a man? Where's all of these things? A creative, where's the artist that's, can keep friends, have loyalties? This is the best of all worlds because it transcends all of that. It's literally just getting down to the root of what's your character in all situations, and you are the observer behind the character, observing your character always. And restimulation, you shut off. In restimulation, you lose track of that. You lose track of I am the self, and then here is my body, emotional, psychological experience, my mind, my body, my emotions. Myself is observing my mind, my body, my emotions. And to the degree I have shut off of that is a restimulation of some sort, or some kind of chemical numbness, or, but if it's not through that, it's ultimately an internal chemical numbness, nervous system reflex through the brain, through the pattern of what's recognized in the environment, most of which you're not aware of. You're just looking somewhere and the rest is just in the background. You're only hearing what I'm saying. What's all the ambient sound? And calming down is going to be, a saving grace of your destiny. The choices that you will make being re-stimulated in some degree of re-stimulation versus the choice you would make if you were calm or more alert and rested. Being unrested re-stimulates. Rest helps to destimulate. It may be hard to rest because you're re-stimulated. Okay, now you need some practices to kind of jerk this body down in, intensity of the nervous system. And the nervous system is in an intense mode. And so how do you do that? You could, message me and get on my 9th limb yoga stuff. I have yoga products that can help you. I can just point you in a direction if you don't have money. Because of course I give a lot of yoga away for free. Almost all of my yoga is away for free, except the Yoga for Sorcery program, which is like direct coaching. So if you're interested in that, that's like group coaching. Because I would want everybody to sign up for the camp, go to the Beast Camp. Like, I'm able to do what I do and give it to you because I've committed my life to this, my lifestyle to this, let's say, my life. Yeah. I'm integrating more and more my life. And as I look back, as I just follow this information, keep going forward and applying, study and apply in more and more ways, practice what I'm telling you and calm down. You'll see more of your life. You'll get more perspective. You'll zoom out and you'll see more of the big picture, and you'll make connections where you weren't seeing connections because you were too zoomed in. Destimulate. Identify re-stimulation. Don't use it so flagrantly. Every time you have an emotional reaction to something, isn't you being re-stimulated? When you can't let it go, when you think about it for 2 or 3 days, that's a re-stimulation. Maybe you don't even notice it until day 3. Maybe you don't even notice it until it lets go. Maybe you don't even notice it until it lets go the next 6 or 7 times that it happens before you even notice that it happens. That's what I'm saying. It takes time. You got to, maybe I'm accelerating you in your awareness of this. So instead of 10 years from now, 2 years from now, you notice that, oh, I keep getting this mood about this thing or whatever. It's affecting your destiny. You make choices and decisions and actions in those re-stimulations that are affecting the cause effect of your life. Cause effect changes your destiny, where you end up. By just practicing calming down, you'll change your destiny. Yeah. Right on. Okay, so go to IMC Base 1 to sign up. If you're not you probably already direct messaged me. You should sign up for Keeper of the Tech. Sponsor level 2K gets a lot of bonuses. I'm sending out bonuses, exclusive content that only like 2 or 3 people have ever seen before, to the people that sign up for the sponsor level this month. And leave a review on the podcast if you're listening online. Find me, click the link in the description, and do all that good stuff. See you guys next time. Os.